Hello and welcome to Fresh Perspectives. My name is Gail, and surprise, surprise, my guest for the day is Doc Hamels, host of Chautauqua Sunrise. Thank you for being on Fresh Perspectives today, John.
Well, it's hard to believe that we've been running in parallel for all this time, and you were telling me you had a 100th show last week? Was that?
Last week.
I would never have guessed it.
Show number 100.
Wow.
So I came in here to my set this morning and wondered why the Christmas stocking at the window was hanging weird. So I went over to straighten it out and found the toy tarantula.
Imagine that.
Here at the studio.
Justin, was that your doing? No, of course it wasn't. I've had a lot of things around the studio alter over the years.
Well, I'll tell you something. Considering the fact that I would figure it probably wouldn't be real likely that there'd be a real one in the studio, I didn't get scared or anything. I remember when my son was a little boy, and I think it was approximately second grade or something like that. My husband had come home from work one day, and he had found a toy, a rubber tarantula, and it was pretty realistic looking, all hairy looking and everything. So he brought it home, and I remember him handing it to Henry. He hands it to him, and he goes, "Here, Henry, take this." And Henry looks at it kind of weird, throws it down on the floor and starts stomping, screams, and then starts stomping on it. So anyways, sometimes it seemed really cute, you know, sometimes those little tricks can turn into cute situations. Now, Doc, how did you become the host of a TV show at this studio?
Well, that's an interesting story, and it goes back quite a ways. You knew Reed Powers, of course, and he actually was a bridge player with my in-laws.
Oh.
This is a strange course that it takes, and Reed and Jane were at my in-laws, the Molsons in Ripley, one day, and Reed says to me, "Would you like to be on my TV show?" I go, "What are you talking about?" I mean, I'd never even met the guy before, and he was pretty gregarious. And I said, "What do you have in mind?" And he said, "You know, I'd like to come in and talk." I think it was about BOCES and the Chautauqua County BOCES and so forth. And I said, "Well, yeah, I didn't know too much about it." He told me where to show up and stuff. And I believe that was about 1996, 95, just after he just started down at the railroad station here in Mayville.
Right, it used to be in a different location.
Oh, yeah. And so so I showed up for the show and we interviewed, and at that time he had this little wooden desk, and both of you were cramped around the desk, and they had 8 curtains on the walls, and it was in the train station, and Reed's hands were going 1,000 miles an hour. He was interviewing me, and he said to me later, "You know, you did, you know, really well. You have good presence on TV." I always had experience with radio and being a musician, stuff like that, so I was comfortable with the microphone and stuff like that. But to be in front of a camera on TV, that was new to me, and so I didn't think much about it, and I don't even know. There was no such thing as YouTube or anything like that, and I don't even know if I have a disc or anything. I think it was all those great big VCR tapes, you know, I think they had all those back then.
Yeah.
So anyways, so then, I don't know, several months later, he called me up and said, "You know, you did a really good job. Would you like to be a substitute host for my show? And so-and-so is going to be here, or you can get your own guest." And I'm going, like, my own guest? So, I mean, I go, what? Well, this is when he was going off on these Norwegian cruises with his wife and family and stuff like this. The Norwegian shipping company. So I said, "Oh, sure." So I hosted the show. I think it was at the train station again. And then every once in a while he'd call me up and do this. And I think he had me on again as a guest and so forth. Well, then I hadn't heard from him in a while. And then I get this call, would you host the show? And I said, okay. And I thought and I remember this one clearly. It was Dave Momberger. He had worked in the grape industry, and he had graciously agreed to be my guest. I had met him through a series of connections. And I told him where to meet me at the train station. Reed never told me they had moved the studio like the week before or 2 weeks beforehand, and they were now at Chautauqua Lake Central School.
Oh, oh gosh.
So there's me driving all over Mayville asking people, where's the studio? Where's the studio? Because it wasn't there anymore. And someone said, oh, I think it's over at the school now. And poor Dave, he's following me around town, and I'm going, I think we're closing in on it. And so finally I get to the studio, and Randy and Jeff, I think, were there, and they had just filled in a little bit of music or something before we got there, sat down and just started the interview right then and there, and that's when I found out it was there. So I might have done one more show at the school, and the next thing I know, Reed gives me a call again and says, Mort Flexer, who was his geezer, it was his sort of like his Ed McMahon. I don't know if you ever met Mort.
No, I guess
he had
not.
been with, oh wow, he was with Reed for years. I would say probably about 12 years, something like that. And Mort would come on and expound about something in the world, government or peace in the world, something or other. And he said that Mort was thinking about retiring from that position, and would I be the geezer? I said no.
Oh.
I said that's Mort's title. I'll be the doc.
Oh.
Okay. And so I said, what do I got to do? He said, well, you got to answer the phone, and then come on for about 5-10 minutes and do something. Well, that's quite a job description. Answer the phone and do something. So it took me forever to figure out the phone system, because when somebody calls in, you're supposed to push this button, and then another person would call in and you push this button, and well, sometimes the system didn't work and I lost people.
Uh-oh.
And well, anyways, so I know it's a long story. I'm getting to the end. And so for 3 years, I was his anchor man. I was the doc, and I would come on and I would talk about whatever. And then one day in, must have been May, I think it was, I was here at the studio, and Reed called in, and I won't go through all the details, but just said he wasn't feeling well. And could I cover? And the guest was coming. I said, absolutely, because I had done this a variety of times over the years. And being his sidekick, I was used to all the technology and stuff. So and he always said to me, when I'm done with this show, you can have it. And I said, Reed, I have absolutely no intentions of having a TV show. I mean, it was just something to do on a Saturday morning, hang out with the guys here. Well, as the story goes, Reed got very ill, and he passed away very shortly thereafter.
Right.
And the senior report was still scheduled to go on. And so we all got our heads together, and I said, okay, here's the deal. I said, let's just continue the senior report, and I'll get guests until we figure this all out. Well, Barb and I went on vacation, and we were down in Savannah, Georgia or whatever, and I had CDs of music, and we're coming up with a name for the show, and I'm sending all this information to Chris and those guys. And so we closed out the senior report in that June, and we started up in July of that year with Chautauqua Sunrise.
Okay.
Different mission. Reed was really, really into seniors, and I'm into seniors too. But it was almost always a senior bend. He was always focused on that end. Where I wanted to be more multi-generational.
Yeah.
He always talked about Washington, D.C. I have nothing to say about Washington, D.C. because I don't know anything. I don't know anything more than you know about it, or anybody else in Chautauqua County. I'm sorry, but we don't. You don't know whether you side this way or this way, and then tomorrow it all flips the other way. So I said, I'm not going to do politics. I don't have politicians on if they're running. I'll have someone that's a political officer after they're elected and talk about their job and things like that, but I don't get into politics. I talk about the good stuff in Chautauqua County, much like you do.
Yeah, there's a lot more interesting subjects anyway, to tell you the truth. I don't find politics particularly interesting myself.
Well, it's hard to talk about them.
And besides that, I knew all of these people that knew all of this really interesting stuff, so So it's easiest for me to get all these other people on. Like we did yoga exercises one Saturday. So, and I wound up finding out that there were people who watch Fresh Perspectives that were actually exercising with the program.
How cool is that?
Yeah, that was really fun.
So the end of the story is, here we are in our 6th season. We're closing in on 300 shows, thousands of views on YouTube. And to the best of my knowledge, we're still the only live TV show in Chautauqua County.
As far as I know, we are. I haven't heard otherwise.
Right.
So.
And I know up in Dunkirk they do some taping and things like that, but my show's a call-in. And as you probably heard, we're now streaming live. And anybody in the world can watch us live. So that's really cool.
That's something new. So. Well, that really was a long story.
But you got to hear the whole story to make it all come together.
Yeah,
I was not in any way, shape, or form ready to be a TV
Well,
host.
you know, it happened more quickly with me. You know, it was just a couple of months after somebody made a comment to me that, you know, I had never even given a thought to having being a talk show host, never ever, but. I guess sometimes you're supposed to do something.
Right, well, but you know, this should be a shout out to anybody that's watching the show today, is that when you have public TV, public access, that anybody can do this.
Anybody can have a television
as long as
program.
they follow the rules, and they're the guidelines are pretty basic, but if they have an idea, they could come up with a series of 6 shows, or they could do a weekly show or a monthly show or whatever. And you know, the shows have come and gone over the years, but I believe the studio has been around since the 95, something like that. And so it's just we're not ordained by some higher power to do this. It's just we, like you said, kind of fell into it, both of us.
Yeah, it was. But somehow I found out that people really appreciated the topics that I was coming on. I mean, I've had people tell me, I like your program because you're introducing us to things we've never even heard of.
Isn't that kind of surprising when people come up and say, I saw you on TV? Oh, really? You watched the show?
The first time somebody recognized me, it was somebody that a total stranger that I had struck up a conversation with, and we start chit-chatting with each other, and she goes, all of a sudden she goes, oh, you're Gail. And I'm going,
do I owe you money?
Yes, I am. Where have I met you before? Since she knew who I was, I figured we must have met at some point in time, but that wasn't it.
I was in the county dump, you know, where they have the county, whatever they call that thing there, and we were doing a tour when this group I was with, and I was talking to somebody, and all of a sudden I hear somebody call, that's Doc Hamels. And I'm looking around, I don't see anybody, I don't see a person, and all of a sudden, Mike from Portland, who calls in from time to time on my show, he goes, I know your voice anywhere, because he had heard me on TV, and I go, wow.
Well, I've even before I had this program, anybody who knew me, I didn't have to tell them if I called them on the phone, because they knew my... they recognize my voice, that it's different, you know, than most people's. Okay, finally getting around to question number 2.
Somebody says you're going to be on for an hour. I said, not a problem.
What is your educational background and the main type of work you have done, and are you retired?
Okay, I can make this shorter. Okay, I have 4 degrees. I have a degree, bachelor's in education, which was in special education and elementary education, and a master's in education. I have a certificate of advanced study in school administration, and I have a PhD in education. So those are the degrees. My main job for 15 years was I was a special education teacher, was at Chautauqua County BOCES. And then I moved into being a training specialist, then an assistant principal, then a principal, regional administrator of all services in southern Chautauqua County, and then I became superintendent of schools in Ripley. And yes, I'm retired. I've been retired, believe it or not, this will be 13 years.
Oh, 13 years. Yep. Oh, okay. Okay, I remember my son took classes at the Asheville BOCES.
I never had him in school, but I remember him.
You know, it was so funny that this first summer I had Fresh Perspectives, I wound up co-hosting the 4th of July parade
That's right.
with you.
Henry was there.
And Henry came along because he knew I was going to be there, so he showed up. And I go to introduce you to each other, and it turned out you already knew each other.
I knew him very clearly. Yes, I knew, he was quite young when I first met him, but like I said, I remembered Henry.
Yeah.
Nice boy.
Okay.
Nice man now.
Yeah. He's 50 years old.
Really?
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
I wouldn't have guessed that old. I was just saying maybe in his 40s, but early 40s.
Well, 50. He's not too far
But
away
I know your brother, Doug.
Doug. I remember when you apparently sent a sympathy card to my brother Doug when our mother passed away, and I'm thinking, he must not know we're. I didn't know that. I didn't know that Doug knew you, and
I knew Doug. Oh my gosh, 15 years or something like that. Yeah, because I was on the board of directors for Chautauqua Opportunities. In fact, I was the chairman for like 5 years.
Yeah, he retired. I think it was last year. Yeah, last year.
Not too long ago. Yeah.
So
that was a shorter answer.
Yes.
All right.
Well, sort of. We got sidetracked though too. What are the other organizations you are involved in?
At the moment? Okay, let's go slow with this one so I can try to remember everything. Well, I'm happy to say I'm the president of our Rotary Club, the Westfield Mayville Rotary Club.
And you keep getting your picture in the newspaper.
That's not I doing. It's our public relations person. I have a stack of those pictures. Proud to be a Rotarian since I think we looked it up the other day, 2003, and actually it's my second time being president of the club. And I also was an assistant governor, which is like a step up, so you cover a part of the region. And in fact, I was even the assistant governor for over in Cattaraugus County because they needed somebody over there. Well, anyways, so proud Rotarian. So there's one area.
Okay.
Another area I'm very pleased to have been very involved with, and still am. I'm the chairman of the board of directors at the hospital in Westfield Memorial Hospital, and I was on the foundation for a few years, and then I moved over to the hospital board, and very, very pleased and proud to have been involved with that organization, both organizations, the foundation and the hospital, doing really good work there, and it's been a learning curve for me. I mean, when you come out of education and you go into a field that you don't know anything about, it's really cool. Let's see, what else am I involved with? I'm on the board of directors for the NorthernChautauqua Community Foundation. That's sort of something new. I've been on there about a year now, and it's not as intensive as some of the other organizations I'm involved with. We meet like every other month, but learning about foundation work is really interesting, and the good work they're doing up there as well. Let's see, I'm moving right along here. Of course, as I mentioned, I was the chairman at one time with Chautauqua Opportunities. I've come off that board. That's right. I have two others to talk about. I got to think about these things sometimes. I forget. I just am finishing up my 5th year as a town councilman in Ripley.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
on the town board. And been very proud to have worked on some projects there. And we just completed a small sidewalk project. Not that I did it, but I helped write the grant for it. I've written the grant for the summer program that we've had. It's called The Hut, and people in Ripley know what that means. Worked on the Veterans Project with my friend Bob McIntosh and things of this nature. So I'm coming off after 5 years, and somebody else can do that job. I'm also an elected member of the Ripley Public Library, and I'm starting my second year now. I think I'm finishing up my 2nd year on that board.
Oh, okay.
But I'm also pleased and proud to say that I was a school board member, I was a fire commissioner, and then on the other 2 boards. So I've served on all 4 boards that our community has. And of course, I was a superintendent of schools, so I'm kind of like a known figure in the town.
Yeah, I guess so.
And then I think that takes care of all the organizations that I'm involved with.
I see pictures of Rotarians alongside the road picking up
That's us.
trash.
That's us. Yeah, we've been doing that for years. We started out at the Portage Gallery. What do they call it? Portage Gallery. Yeah.
The Portage Hill Gallery.
Portage Hill. I knew there was another one. Yeah,
Yes.
Donald and Audrey Dowling.
Right,
I could get the
right.
Hill in there somewhere.
Well, it's funny. I had Rachel Tome on. She was the yoga teacher. I was doing yoga exercises with a few episodes back, and I was showing her our photograph album for Fresh Perspectives after we got finished, and she saw Audrey's picture in the photograph album, and she said, "Oh, I know her. Her and her husband come to my yoga classes."
Oh, nice.
So,
Yep, I've known the Dowlings for a long time.
we used to be in a food buying club with them where we ordered food from a health food distributorship and then got together for a meal once a month. And there were several other families.
Right,
So,
right.
Okay, I've heard that you are a musician. What kind of music do you perform?
Okay, that's a long story. So I'll give you a modified version. I've been an active performing musician for over 50 years. When the Beatles and the British invasion came to America, everybody wanted to be a rock star. So my brother and my cousin, we started a little band back in the early 60s, mid 60s. And, just like anything else, things developed, and we actually got to be a reasonably popular band in Buffalo. So I'm not going to go through all the various versions of myself, but I figured out I have performed in 13 different ensembles over the years, or groups. So I'll just take you to the present day. I play with a gentleman named Will Russell, and we go by Russell and Hamels. Sometimes it's called Doc and Willie, depends on where we are. But I play acoustic guitar right now, Irish bouzouki, which is like a long neck mandolin, and mandolin. And Will and I share vocals. In the past, I have played electric guitar as well, and played in a full band with drums and keyboards and things like that. So you might say, what kind of music? We do our own music, some original. We do what we call Americana, which could be a version of bluegrass, folk music. We do music like the Byrds, some classic rock from that era. I would say we do Celtic music, which could be Scottish or Irish, and some of them are just classic tunes that you would hear if you went to Ireland today, or to Scotland and that sort of thing. So we're sort of an eclectic kind of a thing. So there's two of us, and we're basically an electric acoustic group. Will plays a lot of electric guitar in our show and so on. But we're kind of on a little bit of a hiatus right now. You talk to most musicians, unless you're a full dance band, generally guys like us, we kind of have a quiet period during this time because there aren't farmers markets or little places to play. But from time to time, we play like at LSS for the seniors over there, and I've been doing that for a number of years. And but we do outside concerts and things like that.
Oh, okay. So basically, you do a wide variety of different kinds of music.
This summer, we played at the Grape Discovery Center from time to time. We've done Valentine's Day party dinners, cruise-ins. Westfield's had us regularly at the farmers market, the Arts and Crafts Festival. We played at the McClure. I think I played like 30 sometimes this year, something like that.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you're having a lot of fun with
Right.
that.
People say, how do you do all this? Because all the things I mentioned. Well, when you're retired, you can kind of block your time yourself, and just do chunks of time. I like to keep busy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good for those of us that are retired, if you can call us retired.
But
you hear so many people say after they retire, I wonder how I ever had time to work,
right,
because they're so busy afterwards.
But what I'm finding as musicians out there is a lot of people had bands in the 60s and 70s. Then the real world came into their lives, like raising kids and that. And the music instruments went under the bed, in the closet, wherever. The amplifiers went up in the attic, in the basement. but now when they retire, it's sort of like, I like to dust that off again, and they're getting interested in their music again. And I'm seeing more and more older gentlemen and women getting back into a little bit of the music scene, and it's fun to see them out there playing, and it's good.
Oh, yeah. Okay, you write articles for Silver Magazine. Did you know that in the little bio they have about you at the bottom of the page, they don't mention that you have a television program?
Well, that came before the television show.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
And they never changed it?
I never changed it, no.
Yeah.
You know, like yourself, people come up to me all the time and say, "Talk Hamels!" And I look at them and go like, "Oh my gosh, what have I done now?" And they'll say, "I see your show," or "I read your articles," or whatever. So that has a much simpler storyline to it. After I retired in 2007, of course, you think, how am I going to recreate myself? What are we going to do to fill up a day? And so I'm always looking for crazy things to do. And so there was a little tiny ad in the Post-Journal that says, looking for writers. And it called this number or something like that. So I contacted them and said, we have this magazine that we're trying to have an inaugural edition or two and see how it goes. It's called Silver Magazine. And you basically can write whatever you want about, write whatever that you think that you like and whatever. And it comes out once a month. Don't pay anything, zero money. And you just have to get it in by certain deadlines and so on. Well, I have a PhD, and when you have a PhD, you write, and you write, and you write. So I said, I can do this. So they said, well, and they give you like 1,000 words. 1,000 words? I can say 1,000 words in a minute and a half or less. But then all of a sudden I thought, wow, if I commit to this, I got to write something every month, and it's got to be interesting and on this. So I said, I'll try it. One step before that, back in the 80s, I was a stringer for the newspapers, so I used to write for the newspapers. So for the Post-Journal, the Mayville Sentinel, and the Westfield Republican for a couple of years. So I used to write. So I kind of had a feel for what maybe would be, for the newspaper. But this was a little different, where it was my name, my byline, and I could write whatever I wanted. So the title of my column, just like we have our TV show titles, it's called From Out of the West. And people are thinking like, what is this, about cowboys or Indians? Well, growing up in Chautauqua County, for anybody who's watching right now, I was born and raised in Buffalo, but I've lived over 45 years here in Chautauqua County, so I'm a Chautauquan. I always, when I was in the work field, heard about the north end and the south end. Okay, it's the north and the south. About, well, here in the southern county we do it this way. Here in the north we do it this way. And I go, well, this county's not that big. There's not that many people here. So my title is From Out of the West because I live in western Chautauqua County. Oh, okay. So it's sort of my dig into the fact that, hey, north and south's always talking about north and south. What about east and west? So I'm from the west. And some people would say you're in the northwest, but I'm west. Yeah, well, that means that somebody still has to come up with something about the eastern. There you go, from out of the east. It's fine with me. Chautauqua County. So anyways, I started writing about things that were familiar to me. I wrote about collecting coins, and I wrote about my childhood. And after a while, people started sending me emails. And they're telling me about how they enjoy the article. So I'm now in my finishing up 12 years of doing this. And I thought, that's 12 editions. That's 100, or whatever that comes out to, 144 articles that I've written now over the years. And I have a stack of all these silver magazines. And I do get emails. And people say to me, well, what were some of your favorite ones? Well, I'll tell you that some of the favorite ones I technically didn't write. And people can say, what are you talking about? And anybody's watching right now will know if they've read my articles over the years. I have my dogs write them.
Oh, you have your dogs, right?
So Max, my dog, who is no longer with us, he wrote probably 3 or 4 of the columns. So I wrote through his eyes about how it was under the Christmas tree, watching everything, or when he was left alone with the sitter and they forgot whatever. Then I'd make up things, and people would say, "Did that really happen?" Or, "That's really, oh, that's so funny." And so Max died last year, and it was really a sad time. And so we got a new dog, and
Yeah, I was going to ask you
Brody.
about that,
Brody.
a puppy, that you got a puppy.
He's a Tibetan Terrier. So for me, it was sort of a healing that I needed to do to transition from my very, very close friend Max. I mean, he was like my shadow, and now to this new puppy where I had no connection to, and how was this going to happen? So I wrote this article about the joys of having a new puppy that tears you to shreds and carries all your clothes in the middle of the room.
Yeah.
And so what I found was, so going back to my original question to myself, and people ask me, what were your favorite columns, is the dogs always seem to have the most favor with my readers. And I was getting all kinds of emails from people saying, "Oh my God, I had a Tibetan Terrier," or "How funny, I can't wait to read more episodes of Brody," and things like that. And I actually had a woman write to me, which was so sweet. She said she kept all the articles that Max wrote because she just loved them and was so upset when he passed. And I thought, wow, I got to be careful what I write, what I do here on my TV show, because people are listening and taking that in, and I do affect lives, and that is profound to me when you think about that. So, I've been writing that.
Yeah, I've always, now my husband, Carl, has always preferred to get a puppy, and then he'll tell me, which has always driven me rather crazy, because you go through that puppy. He says it's so, he doesn't have to put up with other people's mistakes by getting them as a puppy, and so then I wind up having to put up with a puppy who is destroying everything that we own.
And trying to housebreak them. Brody's not there yet. He's getting even close, but he's not there yet.
He's still not there yet.
I take him outside, and he does number 1 really well, and then we're out there, and then as soon as he walks in the door, he goes over to the bed in number 2. I go,
yeah.
what's the problem here?
Yeah.
Hasn't got it figured out yet.
Yeah, but on the other hand, before I knew my husband, I had a dog that was perfect, that seemed just about perfect, that I'd gotten when she was 2 years old, so I don't know.
Oh, I think there's pluses and minuses either way.
Yeah. So anyways, I was kind of surprised, though. It sounds like you went to a breeder to get this puppy.
Yeah.
How come you didn't just adopt a dog from the NorthernChautauqua Canine Rescue?
Well, that's a loaded question, and I'm going to answer it as carefully as I can. It really has nothing to do with whether we would do a rescue dog, because I would do a rescue dog in a minute. We, number 1, don't like, I have a problem with short hair and with allergies.
Oh, you have allergies.
And a lot of times when I look at, and I'm not saying it's all of them, but when I see the dogs that are listed, many of them are the short hair variety. Many of them are more the terrier type, and I like a little bit bigger dog. So we had certain things that we wanted. All of our dogs have been long hair, and they don't shed. You got to cut out the mats, of course, but they don't shed like a short hair.
If they had been like a husky or something like that, they would have shed, let me tell you.
Well, when I say long hair, I'm talking like long hair like me. I mean, their hair is 5, 6, 7 inches long.
Yeah, when you have a husky, you basically have a dog or one that is part husky. You basically got a carpet of dog hair all over your floor.
I know people with labs and setters and things like that. But our first dog was basically a sheepdog, didn't really shed. Second was a Maltese. The next one was a bearded collie, and none of them shed. And I never had any issues with my eyes or anything like that. And Brody is a Tibetan Terrier. So how did we pick a Tibetan Terrier? Well, kind of simple. We love watching the Westminster Dog Show every year, and so we'll always say, "Ooh, look at that! Ooh, look at that!" And, you know, and then we always, whatever breed we had, we always cheer for that breed. And so it came down to a Havanese, which is a long-haired dog, or the Tibetan Terrier. And so my wife was just pouring over the internet looking for that particular breed, and I was saying, I'm done with dogs. And then there was a long winter last year with no dog around the house, and it was making me really crazy because the dog is, and I always go out in the woods and go for long walks and things like that. So anyways, so you mentioned, you know, if you get somebody else's dog, sometimes you're inheriting a lot of problems. So we just felt we wanted a dog that had these requirements, and that we would train to be like our family and do our things. So again, I know many people that rescue dogs, and I have absolutely no issue with that, but it had to meet some certain criteria.
Okay. Do you want to mention any cute little stories or anything about your puppy?
My dog, Brody? Oh, sure. He's a real interesting character in that certain breeds, when their teeth are developing, the puppy teeth don't always fall out
Oh, they don't?
by themselves.
Oh.
So here we are, we got this puppy, and I used to come into the studio. In fact, you can still see some of the red marks here, where he was just chomping on me. I mean, in love. I mean, playfulness. I mean, it was, if I had put gloves on, I wouldn't have got caught, you know, chopped up. But he was just like, I'm all over you, and I just love you, and you know, and this sort of thing. And so recently, I had taken him to be to the vets, and we talked about his teeth. And if you opened up his mouth, you know, he had these pointy teeth on the bottom at the top. Well, his baby teeth were still sticking out.
Oh.
So he looked in there and looked like a piranha. So he doesn't have those anymore, and now his teeth are almost as smooth as like an enamel cup, and so it doesn't hurt anywhere neither. So, anyways, but what he seems to have an interest in with around the house these days is to when we're not around, collect a boot, a shoe, a sock, a container, whatever he can find, and just put it in the middle of the living room and maybe play with it a little bit and go find something else. So it's nothing to be surprised that we would have something in the middle of the room. Well, when he was very young, we had somebody house sit, and he was only a month and a half old. And we came home after a vacation and said to the sitter, "Where's the top of the water container?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I have no idea. After the second day, it was gone, and I looked for it, and I can't find it." And he said, we had somebody come in when he wasn't there to just walk him the dog a couple times. He says, "It was probably that kid. He probably took the thing and threw it away." I'm going like, why would anybody do that? So we had this mystery. So for a couple of weeks, we just thought, all right, we'll just let Brody drink out of the bowl like most dogs, instead of one of those water things that goes down, 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 you know, they drink out of. And I think I came home one day, in the middle of the floor is the top of the water container. He must have hid that thing under a bed or somewhere where we just said no. I mean, it was pretty good size. So that little character hides things. So if you give him a toy, it takes off, and where'd he go? And he's stuck it between the cushions of the couch. Or one day I found a dog biscuit under my pillow in the bed. So he's sort of like that, and so he's funny how he collects things.
Like a pack rat.
Yeah.
Have you ever had any cats or any other non-dog pets?
In my life or recently?
Ever.
Ever. Well, when we were kids, strangely enough, my parents would never let us have a dog. My dad up in Buffalo had always wanted to have a beautiful lawn and a beautiful garden, and that's what he got. A beautiful lawn and a beautiful garden, and there was no pets that could get into his garden, and he would just have a conniption if some dog came by and deposited anything on his lawn. And so he took great pride in it. So we had no dog, no cat, but we had goldfish, and we had little turtles that are now outlawed, I guess, because they bring diseases into the country. Those little ones, you always see from Thailand or something like that. And so we had those. Then when I grew up and got married, the kids had a guinea pig and they had gerbils, and then we immediately got a dog because I always wanted a dog. So at one point in time, probably when I was single, I had a cat for a while, and that didn't work out so well.
Oh, it didn't?
Well, no, because I really didn't know anything about cats.
Oh, you didn't know anything
And
about them.
I wasn't, I guess I'm not, I like cats and they like me as a rule, but the dogs and I seem to get along better. How about you? Do you have cats?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we do. And we've always had both cats and dogs, and they've always gotten along with each other. Right. So it's always worked out. So what is your human family like?
My human family? Well, I have a brother, and he just retired from General Motors up in Buffalo. And we're Irish twins.
Oh, you're twins. You're
Irish twins.
Irish twins.
Are you familiar with that term?
No.
So I'm in my, in my 60s here, and I just heard this term for the first time. It's like, I'm not part Irish. And I'm thinking, like, what the heck is an Irish twin? An Irish twin is a set of brothers or sisters, or a combination thereof, that are born under a year apart.
Oh, do you mean like if your mother got pregnant right away?
You got it. My brother and I are 11 months apart.
Wow.
That's what I said. I go, what? What was the hurry? But anyway, so we're Irish twins. And he looks a lot like me. And of course, I take great pleasure when people say, which one of you are older? And they always pick him.
Do they really?
Yeah. But Bob's quite a bit taller than I am, and he's a bigger build than I am. But they always pick him. But he's only 11 months younger. So it was just the two of us growing up. And then, of course, got married. And I have 3 sons and a daughter. And my oldest son just retired from the military. You're talking about Henry being 50. Scott's going to be 45. And Sean's down in Florida, and he's 40, I got to think this through here, 43. And then Stephanie is our daughter. And in the opening credits of my show, you'll see our underwriters there, and Bella Salon. She's the owner of that salon.
Okay.
And has done fabulous work there. And we're proud of all the kids. But every one of them went into a career field that was, a vocational area. So Scott was military, but now is a police officer in Texas. Sean has done construction and remodeling and carpentry, electrical, plumbing, all that sort of thing. Stephanie, of course, went into cosmetology and salon management, and she's done a great job there. And my youngest son, Justin, who's in his 30s, mid-30s, he does heavy construction, heavy equipment, and so forth. And so I think I counted it all up one day. I had to go back and count, but I think, oh my gosh, this is embarrassing, because usually grandmas can rattle off how many grandkids they have and all that. So give me a second. Let me just think this through. We've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 9 grandchildren, and then a whole slew of great-grandchildren. So that we don't see too often, because, as the generations spread out, they keep way out there.
Yeah, it gets to where they don't live close anymore.
But I always taught the kids that when they got old enough to move away, and I would tell them how many years left they could live at the house. And my daughter, when she was 4 years old, just had a screaming fit, and she says to her mother, "Dad says I gotta leave." And my wife said, "What are you talking about?" She says, "Daddy says when I'm 18 years old, I have to move away." And she thought she didn't have any concept of time or numbers. And my wife said, "Don't you ever say that again." And I said, "No, I'm going to continue it because it's a good practice." So now the kids have all moved away, and we get to visit them. So we have vacations all over the place.
So you have to travel then?
Texas,
to visit.
Florida. Of course, Steph is just over into Erie, Pennsylvania. That's not too far. And Justin just lives down the road, but that's all good. It's always good to have a family close by.
It is. And then and then you do some overseas traveling.
Oh,
too.
yeah. Well, a lot of that is very interesting in that we wanted to have an exchange student for my daughter, because she was the only girl. And so, short story is we got involved with one of those foreign exchange programs, and we had the cataloging. It's kind of weird when you see a catalog of people you could choose from.
Really?
Yeah, they show you pictures and a write-up, and this person's available, that person's not available. So we wanted a girl, we wanted it to be a certain age group, like Stephanie. Well, long story, we all agreed on the same exact person, and she was, as it turns out, the only one that was available, and she's now basically our daughter. And so really I should have included her in the discussion. Julie Kaspari, she's from Germany, and she's been to visit us. Well, she lived with us for a year, been back a couple times. Her parents have been here, and we've been with her parents, I think, about 8 or 9 times now in Germany. We visit them quite often, and we stay in touch. Julie's now an MD and has a little boy and married and all that good stuff, and so we visit them. Scott was in the service, my oldest one, and he was stationed in Germany, so we'd start in the south of Germany to visit Scott, and then hop a train, a plane, whatever, and go north, hang out with them. And then a whole other area of my life has been genealogy, and I discovered relatives in Belgium and Holland, and so we stay in touch with them and get to visit with them. And this past summer, we did a river cruise, and we got to see my Dutch cousins again that hadn't seen in a while.
Yeah, okay, that's good. So, do you have any hobbies you might like to tell us about? You don't have time.
No, I have no time for hobbies. Well, yeah, I do have hobbies, and some of them I've had to put on hold over time, and other times things I still mess around with. I think I was born a coin collector. I just love looking at the old coins, and I can remember when I was probably like 5 or 6 years old, emptying out my piggy bank and looking at the Mercury dimes and Bufflehead nickels and things that obviously are obsolete today. But I think when my grandparents was a sort of a semi-collector, a coin collector, my grandmother's husband, and he was showing me books, and of course then my parents got me the little book that you pop the pennies into and that sort of thing. And over the years I've just had a modest little collection, so I've always enjoyed coin collecting. And then another area that I sort of gotten into was carving. It really is not a good thing to do when you're a musician or a writer, because you have to use your thumbs and your fingers to a great degree, and after you've been carving wood for a while, your thumbs are going to fall off, and it's not really good to go play guitar afterwards.
Oh.
So I put it to the side, but I was doing some relief carving and some 3D carving with basswood and things of this nature, so I have a small collection of that. My wife and I also have sort of a hobby where a lot of people don't even know who this person is. Bessie Peace Gutman. She did a lot of prints for various magazines back in the turn of the century down in Philadelphia.
The turn of which century?
The 20th century. So it would
Okay.
have been
In
1910, 1918,
Okay.
20s, 30s. And they're always about little babies sleeping. And if you saw one of these, you'd say, oh, I've seen those in antique shops, or my grandmother had that. So we have fun going around the country, basically, to antique shops and looking for these. And so we have a small collection of those. And so it's like the hunt, that type of thing.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
You asked, I answered.
Did you, like on any of your overseas trips, do you have a story maybe about something really interesting?
Yes, of course.
That happened? You
Yeah.
want to tell us a story about?
I can tell you lots, but I'll tell you the one that just floated right to the top of my mind.
Oh, okay.
So I mentioned Julie, our German exchange student, and we've become very close with her family. And we're family for all intents and purposes. And so it was last year we visited them for about 10 days. I think we try to go like a week and a half, something like that. So her dad's name is Rudolph, and her mother's name is Leoba. And so Rudolph has some friends that do remote control airplanes.
Oh, okay.
And said, would you like to go to the airfield and hang out with them? And that there might be an opportunity to take a ride in a single prop. I think it was a single prop airplane for a little ride. Well, I'm not afraid of flying. I get airsick or motion sickness really easy.
Oh, okay.
So when I fly transatlantic, I take Dramamine and I'm fine. And that's all I need is just a cut. For whatever reason, I'm mentally, emotionally fine. It's my body gets really clammy. So, so I said, sure. It's not unusual for the two of us to do that sort of thing, to go off on one of these little adventures. So, so we get to the airfield, and our mutual friend Hans was showing me around, and he was showing me the airplanes and so forth. And I'm looking up, and they have these planes landing, and I'm thinking, oh, this is interesting. And I'm waiting to hear about this single prop airplane ride. And I had taken my Dramamine. I take one because I figured that's all I would need. So the next thing I know, they said, oh, would you like to take a ride? And I said, yeah, but they weren't talking about what I thought I was talking about. Sometimes I lose things in the translation there. And I know some German. So they said, well, come on over here. And the next thing I know, this glider plane had come in. And I'm looking it over. And they said, would you like a ride in there? And I go, okay. And I've never been in one, and so now I could feel my skin getting clammy already, and I go, oh my God, what am I getting myself into? So they said, oh, just for a few minutes, you just try it. I go, okay. So they said to me, well, you need to put this on. I go, and they're putting something on my back, and I go, what am I getting? Well, what's this? I said, well, that's your parachute. I go, parachute? What do I need a parachute for? And there all these German guys, these tough guys, they're going, oh, you need that in case, you got to jump out of the airplane. I go, I'm not jumping out of the airplane. I'm going down with the airplane. I don't need, well, anyway, so I had to put this parachute on. And now, have you ever been in a glider?
No.
I'm not exaggerating. It's this wide. So if a camera can look at me, it's this wide.
That's all there is.
That's all there is to it. And because I'm pretty tall, when they closed the glass, it was just about touching my head. The sun's shining. I got this parachute on my back. I'm in the back seat, and the sun's shining in there, so it's heating up. Remember I said I got motion sickness. So motion sickness and warm air and clamminess doesn't go well together. So the way the glider goes up, it's on a hook. And a big cable, 1/4 mile down the way. And so they go, oh, get on their walkie-talkies, and they say, okay, whatever, Schnell. And all of a sudden, it's quiet. It's beautiful. And I'm up there, and we're floating around, and I'm looking down. I can see canals and houses, and Germany's beautiful in the north. And I'm going, this is good. I'm good with this. And it's quiet, and Hans is talking to me, doing okay, I'm doing fine. And then all of a sudden, the glider goes, woo! And I go, oh, there goes my stomach. And Hans says, if you're uncomfortable, you let me know, and we'll take you down. And he says, just let me know. I said, I'm uncomfortable, and I'm clammy, I'm sweating. And what happened was, these gliders, and for those that are watching are probably laughing their heads off right now, they catch these vapors, these air currents that go up like this. So the glider corkscrews its way up. Motion sickness, vapors, no, this doesn't go well for me. So there I'm over Germany, turning green. And so finally he's coming down, and we just land real soft, and I get out of there, and I go, oh my God.
Did you throw up?
No. I was everything I could not to, but Hans was very sensitive to my needs. But it was spectacular, to say the least, when you're up there like 1,000, 1,200 feet or whatever it was. So that was one of my interesting experiences in travel.
And scary.
And scary. And so it was like, when I got off, I got, check, I've done that now. I don't have to do that again.
Do you have any goals you want to accomplish in 2020?
In 2020, sure. You didn't ask me about if I was working. I actually have a job.
Oh, okay.
So another story, very short. So one day, you're going to love this story. You're going to love this. So one day, I was sitting around on TV, watching TV with Barb, and this is in August. And so she gets a text message from somebody we know and said, looking for somebody to do heavy lifting, and if you know anybody, would you let me know? So Barb turns, I'm not giving you the whole story. So Barb turns to me and says, you interested? I go, yes. So long story short, I'm the assistant dog groomer.
You're an assistant dog groomer.
Yeah.
At a pet grooming
At a pet grooming shop in Northeast Pennsylvania called Pooch Palace.
Oh my gosh.
With Nancy Hunt. And
oh my gosh.
So what they do is they call me in when there's larger breeds, when they have these golden doodles and golden retrievers and Labradors. And
the ones that you're not allergic to.
As a rule, not. Yeah, well, of course, I'm only with them for a short period of time, or if there's multiple dogs, and so we wash them and shampoo them and blow dry them, and she does all the cutting, I just do all the holding, and brush them out. So, you said what my goal for 2020, I suppose a goal would be to learn a little bit more about grooming and that sort of thing. And my other goal probably for 2020 would be to find something else to do.
Oh, okay.
In other words, looking for a new avenue to do something interesting. I don't know whether it's artistic or something different. I know. Grooming was totally different. When I tell people that, it was the same expression as your face, like, what?
No, I could maybe see myself getting involved in something like that.
It's fun. People say, what'd you do this for? I said, well, all my life I've had people yelling at me, complaining about taxes, complaining about kids at school, teachers. I said, the dogs lick me, they hug me, they nuzzle with me. Nobody swears at me. The clients think I'm pretty cool because there's this old dude carrying their dog around or whatever. So it works out pretty good.
This program is one of my jobs, but I was talking to somebody when I was working on election day. That's one of the jobs that I've taken up. And I was talking to this other lady that I was working with, and she's retired from the job that she'd been doing for quite a number of years. And then she says to me something about, now I'm thinking about becoming an airline stewardess.
Really?
I think they call them something else now. But anyway, she's thinking about doing that. She goes, I have these other retired friends that are doing that, and they just love it. And
well, some of those short trips maybe, or that'd be kind of fun.
I'm not real sure.
I see these ads on TV where these people, and I won't necessarily, where you drive your own car and you pick people up. I'm not going to mention their names because I'm not supposed to do that. But you know what I mean. And they're getting paid by taking people, chauffeuring them around. And go, nah, I don't want that job. I don't want a job where I have to do a lot of driving around. But anyways, I was going to ask you real quick. What your favorite episode of Chautauqua Sunrise was, and what the worst one was? Oh, the worst one, I can go, and it's not that it was worst. I felt bad for the person. It was real early in the series, and I think I had a number of guests together, and I could tell just from their body language that they were nervous. So I know we're running out of time here. But when I got down to this person, they just dry mouth and couldn't talk, and it was really difficult for them, so I just try to make them at ease. So that was
that sounds like the time how I felt the time that I was on Reed Powers.
Oh
being interviewed.
Right.
I knew I was on live, and
but as far as best goes, boy, I've had kids from the ages 7 or 6 years old, the Cub Scouts, all the way up to my dad was in his 90s. It's really tough to say what's my favorite, but musicians maybe when I have musicians come on and the young kids. It's a lot of fun.
Well, when I was coming in here today, Doc's guests from Chautauqua Sunrise were leaving, and here they were dressed up in all this old-fashioned stuff with the hoop skirts.
Right, the mid-19th century,
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Victorian, lots of fun.
In the 1800s,
1850s, yeah.
Nowadays, those hoop skirts would be considered abuse.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah.
It was
huge. It was round as a stable.
If women were told they had to dress like that, there'd be a war over it, I think. Well, okay, we have run out of time.
This was fun. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Well, thank you for agreeing to be on.
Right.
It was different for a change.
Well, I wish you success in the next 100 shows. You're obviously doing something right. And it's a little bit of work, though.
I think that the guys are happy that I've stuck it out this long.
Good for you.
At least from the way they talk, I think so. I think the studio really was in need of more programming at the time.
Yep, still is.
And so if any of you out there have an idea for a program,
yeah, get hold of the studio here.
Yeah, or if you think you could help out substitute for some of the technical guys.
Right.
When they need to take some time off. Okay, well, I'll see the rest of you in the viewing audience on the next episode in a couple of weeks.
All right, thanks for